Hello and welcome to edition number 3 in the podcast series where we're talking about a game of two halves, the mental and the physical. So plenty of people are talking about the physical, the mental game, a lot going on tonight. So I'm here in my virtual studio with my good friend and colleague, Lewis Buxton. Hi, Lewis.
Hi, mate. How you doing?
I'm well. Thankfully, nerves are not frayed like a lot of people's. I think I'm feeling quite nice tonight, actually. Just quite
What, after that Facebook Live or the football?
Yeah, both. Yeah. We just done a quick Facebook Live as well to capture the moment. So there's a lot going on. So we want to kind of get straight to the mental game, really, because interestingly in this, Lewis, I was really shocked how aware actually the commentators were of the mental game and what was going on, which I hadn't heard quite so much before. And to quote Glenn Hoddle, he said, I think it was before half time even, he said, this isn't a football test, it's a mental test. It's an emotional test. You know, that was, I think emotional test was the words he used. And I guess that's the thing as a player. He was talking about managing emotions as well. So the guys, to give a bit of context for that, whether you saw the game or not, or what we're talking about, but the guys on the Colombia side were pretty much, I think, let's not go as far as calling them cheats, but they were bending the rules of sort of FIFA fair play, I think, or the intent of the game, and trying their best to sort of, to use that English phrase, wind people up a little bit, frustrate, etc., in order to gain some sort of unprofessional advantage. And whether that was a tactic or that's just how they play, I don't know enough about Colombia to know, but it was our response to that and that's interesting. So there's this thing out there that's going on, and our response to it did seem to be detrimental in terms of our performance started to suffer when the referee appeared to be pretty lenient, you know, given the strength of protest after free kicks. I mean, I'm sure there could have been an extra quarter of an hour allowed for kind of what the delays actually were added up. So what did you make of that? What was your take?
There was a lot of talk about it, yeah, like you said, with Neville mentioned it. I think Glenn Hoddle and the commentator mentioned it quite a lot. So it was what some would consider a bit of a psychological test when you've got somebody who's clearly got a bit of a game plan that they've kind of preordained before the game. They're going to try and ruffle the feathers of the England team, knowing full well that the England team have got, you know, overall slightly more technically skilled team. So that, to me, that seemed like a preordained tactic. And, you know, I'm not really one for preordained tactics, but, you know, they seem to have a lot of energy and a lot of kind of fire in their bellies, Colombia. And I think picking up that sometimes we can overreact to what other people do, other teams do, other players do. We saw it with David Beckham with years back against Argentina, where he acted out and got sent off. So I think that's where Colombia were coming from with that one. But the England team, like you said, they held their ground, I thought, and didn't do anything stupid and weren't, you know, caught up in that anger, blaming the other person for how they feel and acting out of that. So that was good to see, and hopefully there'll be more of the same against Sweden. Maybe not penalties this time.
Yeah, certainly hope so. So it's interesting on that view. Then I think that for me, I think that given the relative inexperience and I don't know, lack of maturity is not the right word, but where you're a younger team, right? So than England usually have fielded, I think, in the past, and yet they're bringing a greater sense of maturity in dealing with these difficult situations, or apparent experience beyond their caps, if you like, or what the stats would say their experience to be, because they, as you say, they did handle it quite well, and it makes you wonder what Gareth is bringing behind the scenes to the mental game, whether it's he's got a greater understanding about how our minds are actually functioning as human beings, or whether it's simply his calmness or his inherent, you know, level-headedness and all that kind of thing, which is what you want, you know, in any situation which is difficult or pressured, you know, whether that's in a an operating theatre or, you know, a war zone, somewhere where it's critical, you want to be around people that are not losing their heads, you know, and that's sort of a business mantra, you know. It's the key to leadership is keeping your head when all around you others are losing theirs. You know, that's what defines leaders, and that applies to whatever you're doing. So that seems to reverberate around the team, that calmness, as a sort of send out that good vibe, as opposed to, I heard a really good quote from Rio Ferdinand when he was being interviewed. He spoke about during Hoddle's time that he seemed to be more affected by that, and the players kind of felt that, got affected by that, by his own nervousness or uncertainty. Do you pick up on any of that, or?
Yeah, I think, you know, he seems to have that air about him that whatever happens, he's still got a kind of a decent connection with the team, and it looks like they've got a good bond. Like you saw him going up and having a little embrace with Harry Kane, and it just seemed like that wasn't. Sometimes you see that with a manager, and it's like it's forced, and you know full well that there's not really that connection between the player and the manager and the whole team as kind of one unit. So I think they do seem to have that, and the goal that they got in the group stage and coming through penalties when, you know, a lot of people in England have got a massive hang up going into penalty shootouts, like, you know, our whole chances of winning are based on what happened in the past. So you know, I'm not saying I don't go there sometimes. I definitely do, but it's I think that leadership comes from having a genuine connection with the players, and also you know, we can all have that with anyone within an organisation, within a football team, within a family, with anyone out there, which is a lot of people maybe don't know that. And it seems like you know, he's maybe from his experience in the past, Gareth Southgate has you know, had a few insights that whatever happens, you know, if I miss or if we go out of the World Cup, you know, there's a bit more to life than that, and that brings with it its own certainty, like you mentioned, that, you know, we're a good group of lads. We've got probably more tournaments coming up, and who knows what's going to happen. Let's prepare, and let's then go out there and just play our game, and not worry about what happened 10 years ago or what might happen tomorrow. So that's what I really like about the England setup.
Yeah, I mean, they bring so much that's new and fresh, I think, to English football at national level. Because just you were talking, you know, the other thing when you spoke about connection and so on, that they're also talking about connection with the nation as well. So it's not just within the team, but it seems that they've got the nation behind them, you know, or more support or leniency or whatever that is. And that goes from, you know, the average fan to people that are, you know, pretty neutral about it all, but maybe just watch international games, right up to the press, who, as we know, can be kind of best maybe a bit malicious to downright insulting, etc. Should you just have one poor performance, and the Graham Taylor period, you know, what he had to endure, it's remarkable, really, about whether people are with you or against you, and thinking about that in terms of having that connection with the fans. And they said some of that is to do with them, you know, talking about their own challenges with mental health, for example, Rose talking about that, and people being quite honest about who they are. So they identify themselves as human beings first, and then footballers after. And it seems that people think that might be a reason for it. And I'm certainly struck by, you know, although obviously it's a physical game, you've still got performance involved. You've still got goals, targets that you want to achieve, and standards that you want to reach. And in business, that's no different either. Yet in sport, that you're allowed you're allowed to be more yourself, because you're allowed to exhibit your emotion. You're allowed to be more passionate, more vocal, and certainly more physical. The guys, hugging after a goal and stuff like that. You wouldn't see that in business. It's firm shake of the hand and then you're off. That's it. It doesn't matter if you just won a big contract or something really important that's happened within the business. You've done an amazing job. The team performed brilliantly, and I've certainly felt about that in the past, where teams of people have done an amazing job in difficult situations, but the best you'll get is an email of praise. That we sent the whole company to show our appreciation, and it's quite different in sport. And so whether that greater in touch with humanness is actually helping the team performance as well and be themselves seems to have some value to me.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, the only thing that gets in the way, whether it's business or sport, is kind of our own thinking. And too often we think it's the environment or somebody else out there that's changing the way we feel and feel like we're under some kind of spell as to what may or may not happen out there. So I think kind of whether it's in business or whether it's in sport, that connection is always there. And when we get out of our own way and we stop buying into our own thinking about a rigid structure within an organization, then that just allows people to kind of be themselves a bit more. And if the kind of CEO, the managers, the chairman all understand that, then like with Gareth Southgate, it gives everyone a better chance of performing beneath them, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely right. So I guess to bring value to people that are listening or so on, the point that we would like to make here that will be useful for people is about realizing that as people, that inherent connection, if you like, with one another is an innate quality. You've only got to see how well kids get on in the playground, for example, when they meet for the first time, particularly if you're going away on holiday with kids and so on. You can see at whatever level you're at, you see how they make friends easily. They'll bond, they'll not be afraid to try new things because of what people might think of them, etc. And although it might seem trivial or something that maybe doesn't make sense, but to me there's a lot to learn in that they somehow realize this connection, or that there's nothing to fear, because that was another, fear probably is a complete separate video as well. And they were talking, I think Otter was, again, 90 seconds into the game, saying, got to leave the fear in the dressing room, right?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, that was a classic, wasn't it? Yeah. But,
so how do you do that? That is, if that's an ex-England manager,
you're knocking mud off your boot. You're just like, just leave it there. Just leave it.
Just put it down, guys. Just leave it there. So perhaps we'll come on that another time. But to a lot of people, there's a lot of people that are reading books and talking to mental coaches and literally working on their mental game so that they can try and leave their fear in the dressing room and, go out and be themselves and play with freedom and be the opposite, be fearless.
Like everyone, sometimes when I'm feeling fearful, it's because it's always because I've got fearful thinking. So I don't know, I buy into it, as everyone does from time to time. But definitely, as when I was a younger player, I remember being told many times by coaches and psychologists that you've got to imagine feeling confident to kind of escape that fear, and you've got to do this and this, and you won't be scared when you go out there. So it's just being able to be scared, not be completely overwhelmed, and see that you've got a lot more going for you than just how you feel. So that can sound like a throwaway comment, I get that, especially for people that do live with a lot of fear in their life, whether they're playing football or they're going to work or whatever it is. So, I'm not saying that you're not experiencing fear and you're not experiencing, nervousness or you're anxious. I'm not saying you're not experiencing that. Oh, that's not where we're coming from. It's just that trying to move from one state to the other is not your job. You can't really do that, and any attempt to kind of try that kind of compounds that thinking already of fear. So I just think it's going to be amazing to kind of see another generation of people coming up, coaches, players with an understanding that their mind works from in to out and not the other way round. And it kind of empowers them, don't leave them as a victim to somebody else or a certain outcome. And to have that within any sort of organisation or football team, that kind of understanding and realising that, you know, we all get swept away by fear and uncomfortable feelings at times, but you know, they're only temporary, and you're gonna come back out the other side. It's a real kind of innate resilience that everyone's got within them, and harnessing that for the people out there is can potentially really change their life, you know.
Yeah, never more so, I guess, than in a penalty situation. You know, we've not touched on that yet, but that whole, you know, what can the fear level be like when you're stepping up to take that penalty, you know, and or the fear when you miss, you know, and the world comes crashing down on you or whatever, and you start fast forwarding into the future, and is that the goal that, you know, the missed opportunity that sends us home or whatever, and all of that, you can see that when you say people have all this stuff pinned on circumstances out there happening and how they're going to feel, that way that we're brought up, being fundamentally flawed, it is quite harmful, you know, to live a life like that and to endure that, you know, and as you say, then be more in touch with the truth. So that's kind of our ambition and what we will, purpose of this podcast, why we want to share more about that truth, as Lewis touched on there, really, that the way that we experience is from within us and not from the world out there. So it'd be really cool to cover more of that. And if you're following the podcast, then yeah, hopefully you'll learn a lot more from that. So yes, thanks so much for joining me again, Lewis, then today. It seems yeah, an exciting journey, and roll on Saturday, I guess, is everyone's on the happy bus now, and we're kind of all upbeat again because of the result. So it's yeah, it's an amazing adventure, whichever way you cut it. So thanks so much for joining me again. I've really enjoyed chatting tonight.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, thanks for having me.